All right, here we are. Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today, we don't have a theme song. Yeah, I know that's a good thing for most people. It's a 1 minute that doesn't really have to happen most time, but it's something that reoccurring with these interviews. But today, we're gonna be fancy. It's gonna be a YouTube video. So it's not going to be a traditional format, but it's going to still take the shape of what we normally do. So we got a special guest here, and would you like to introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, sure, Josh. My name is Paul Boulanger, and I am on the CLC slate, I guess, for the Director of Education. And I'm glad to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you too. I'm a fan of education, so this one's going to be a good one. Now, as you may already know, I'm just going to let everyone know that this is a position that has been abolished by the current NALC, and that this is a potential position that Paul Bolanger will hold under the CLC slate when they decide to bring the position back, if they assume the position of being in control. So, either way, the listeners have sent questions in to get to know Mr. Paul Bolanger. And we're just going to go through the questions one by one, starting from the top. And let's start off. All right, let's see. Tell me
Right.
what a director of education is and what you will do on a day-to-day basis as one.
Okay, so I think the previous role, so the Director of Education was phased out in, I think, 2017, and it became an assistant to the president position. Um, I think the position used to be a classroom position. The person used to teach like leadership academy. They used to pop into arbitration training. What I envision it to be now more is to make sure that education is actually happening. So I think I would be a more on the road, making sure that I'm going to offices, regions, making sure that education is actually being followed through on. I think that's more important than sitting in a classroom. And not that I wouldn't be, because I do love teaching, but I also think that we need to make sure that the teaching is happening. So to sit in one classroom doesn't mean that 15 regions are doing what they should be doing. So I hate to put it that way, but there's got to be some enforcement to make sure that the teaching is actually going on and it's not just being penciled in and not. So
Okay, that makes sense. Why did National abolish the role?
that's a damn good question. I have no idea, brother. I think National really lost focus, is what I think. I think that they just left it up to the regions, and if you look now at the teaching, some regions do a really, really good job, some do an okay job, but they've fallen so far apart. I mean, if you look at some of the programs in Region 6, Region 9, Region 14, they're so different. Some people do steward colleges, some people do School of Stewards, some people do a 1 or 2 day training a year. It's all over the map. And I don't know why they did away with it. I guess that's the question is why. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that it was a big mistake and it's just caused a cancer in our education program.
All right. Why aren't you running for NBA in your region, Paul?
Why am I not? Well, because there's a really good person running, Tom Rooney from Branch 34 in Boston. He's a really good friend of mine. But you bring up a really good point. So, Region 14, where I'm from, New Hampshire, we're a six-state region. And one of the things I've always had a problem with, Josh, is, if there's big states and small states in a region, sometimes the big states get all the attention and the little states get left behind. And that's kind of what's happened in Region 14. Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont in the 126 years, 130 years, have never had a position at the regional level. Never. We haven't been RAAs, secretaries. We haven't swept the floor, cleaned the toilets. Nothing. So it just doesn't compute with the law of averages. And I think talking to Tom Rooney from Branch 34, he's a different kind of soldier. He's not going to be keeping everything in one town or one state. And he's already reached out to us. He's done training with us. He's already said that he's going to involve everybody in the region. So
You
I have
can't
no
even get a
problem.
custodian from Maine?
I'll tell you, and it's funny because if you look at Northern New England, our three states, we're the only district, the Northern New England district, we're the only district that don't have an in-house Step B team. Our Step B team is in one of the big states down south of us. So, I mean, it's almost laughable that, we get no representation, but that's going to change, and I have a lot of faith in Tom. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to insert something here. I feel like I can relate to that in Region 6. Now, don't get me wrong. I think to a degree, I think they do have one position at the NBA's office from each state. But if you look at Kentucky and Indiana, we're Kentucky and Michigan. And if you look at Michigan, it's 11,000 carriers. If you look at Kentucky and Indiana, it's 6,000 combined. So, to be honest, a lot of focus happens in Michigan because it helps you with reelection. Uh,
yeah.
I think that maybe the regions should be split up a little bit differently, to be honest.
Well, I don't know if you recall, a couple of years ago, I did try to propose an amendment for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have 15 regions, and some are six states, some are one state. So I had
Yeah.
proposed going to 18 regions, and you could have three states or districts in each one. So it'd be three total. Then you could have one person from each state.
Yeah,
But
I think that would be great. But
it's a good idea, but get shot down. But that's okay. I believe in the democratic process, so we're all good.
all right. So Region 6 has some of the best training offered, my opinion, of course. Would you make short training videos on variety of subjects too long to list and post them in the members only section?
This question from you.
No, it's not.
So, Region 6 does have great training. I really like their steward college or their school of stewards, is it? Is that what they
Yep.
call it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's them in region, I think, what's Washington, region one?
If I'm not mistaken, it's either one or two.
Yeah, but they have a really good program too, and Region Nine's got some great training. Go back to that question again. I'm sorry, I was all caught up in
Oh, it's
the
fine.
training again. You talk
It's
about education, I
asking
get all excited.
it's asking if you would make short training videos on a variety of subjects to post to the members only section.
Yeah, actually, right now, if you look online, the CLC is actually doing something called tidbits, like steward tidbits. It's something like that. It's little short contractual reminders, and I think that's really important to get the membership involved in something like that. So yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. To the rank and file, I mean, we on the workroom floor, we don't get enough training, and we don't have to be stewards to get training.
All right. Do you prefer Tupac or Biggie?
Oh God, there's a story behind this. So my son and my son, when he was a teenager, we were talking about rap music or something like that. And I said, I don't like it. And I mentioned Tupac. I don't like it at all, right? And he shoved me. It's the first time my son ever shoved me. He's like, he got killed. And I thought I was gonna have to beat up my son over a rapper. So I guess I'd have to go with Biggie because Tupac almost caused family strife.
I would have to agree. I'm on Team Biggie. All right. What is your favorite food, and what about favorite regional food from your region?
Oh man, favorite regional food. Well, um, Fenway Franks. Fenway Franks are top there. There's a lot to be said there. I like lobster. There's something probably you don't have an X-rated channel here, do you? There's something called rooster balls that they have up here. And what it is it's like the shredded buffalo chicken dip, and they make it into like meatballs and they'll deep fry it. And it's fantastic. I'm telling you. A couple restaurants that serve it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's see. What station do you work out of, and what is your route number?
So I work out of Manchester West, 03102 and 03110. My route number is 1034. Mostly a business route, some residential, maybe half and half, really. A lot of
Okay.
snow.
Yeah, I can imagine
Yeah,
that.
can't get out of that.
What are we going to be doing about all this undelivered mail? Does the CLC plan on taking a public stance on what side of the fence they sit on? I know you have stated how you feel, but I'd like to see folks like James Henry comment on the issue like Carif has, because I'm not quite familiar yet where they stand.
So I've talked to James Henry, I've talked to Corey Walton. They are both 100% against what's going on. And you and I have talked too, Josh. And I think there's a bigger agenda here. I think that the undelivered mail isn't a mistake, that it's happening right around our contract negotiations. So my opinion, and I think James and Corey are on the same boat, is that we really need to get Congress involved. I mean, I don't think there's any other way. There's laws in place, there's 6-day delivery laws, there's laws against delaying mail. And if we don't enforce those laws through Congress, and this is an election cycle year too, so this is a great time to reach out to our congressmen and say, people who are submitting their tax returns aren't going to get them submitted on time. People who
Yeah.
are waiting for their medication, it's sitting on the floor in somebody's mailroom. So I think the congressional route is the way to go. As a matter of fact, I'm drafting up a letter for most of New Hampshire, and it's probably going to be out in a week or two, but we're going to attack it that way. I don't think the grievance procedure is a great thing, but this is a huge concerted effort by the Postal Service, and I think we need help from our friends in Congress.
All right. Let's see. All right. So this next question I don't really get, so I'm going to skip it. So a lot of stewards around the country are seeing what feels like a growing pattern where management just refuses to settle clear violations and pushes everything to step B or arbitration. It ends up clogging the whole system and makes it feel like management is almost using delay as a strategy instead of trying to resolve disputes at the lowest level, like the contract intends. So, my question is, what tools does the NALC have at the national level to deal with that kind of behavior?
Okay, so it's not almost like they're stalling. They are stalling. They are stalling our grievance procedure. And what they're doing is, well, take for instance the interpretive issue they just pushed forward on branches and stewards getting financial remedies. So why don't we do something like that? Why don't we push a national level grievance on the appropriateness of cease and desist remedies? Put that out there and get that established. So once a national arbitrator says cease and desist is appropriate as a remedy in the right circumstances, we won't get these slew of cases getting thrown back because they're arguing cease and desist. But on a more local level, as a steward, you and I would perfect an argument for cease and desist and make it the same boilerplate argument and put in every single grievance. So every time an arbitrator gets this, they're going to say, okay, I've seen this before. Cease and desist is an appropriate remedy. Let's move on to what this grievance is really about. Because the backlog is incredible. And you're right, it is a strategy because what happens when you have 45,000 cases at step B? Well, we're going to be reluctant to make it 46 or 47. So we're going to start settling for stuff that we shouldn't settle for. So it's
Yep.
dangerous. It's blackmail, in my opinion, and we need to fight back on a national level.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. So, oh, well, let's see. This person kind of expands on that question. So I'm going to continue on.
Sure.
My first instinct is to think about labor practice charges, but with the NLRB not having a quorum right now, would those just sit there in limbo? If that avenue isn't really effective at the moment, are there other ways like the national union could go after management for what looks like a pattern of bad faith grievance handling? Like I know you talked about the other ways. You want to comment on that NLRB issue?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the NLRB. I've had some bad experiences with, well, I've had a lot of experiences where they haven't done much for us, but they've got something called the Collier Doctrine, Collyer. And what that does is anything except for requests for information, they can push back to the grievance procedure. And that's what they always do. They defer to the grievance procedure. So anything that we file is just going to come back at us and we're going to have to file through the grievance procedure. It's not really an effective tool for this. Um, I mean, they're good for certain things, but you have to get that one NLRB attorney who is actually drinking a cup of coffee and ready to fight for you. Because a lot of times they just push it back and it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right. What is your thought on the division of duties for education and training between NALC headquarters and the regions and the branches?
So I just talked to you a minute ago about, I think the division that we have right now in education. I think it's a good thing if we have the same message. So NALC headquarters should have the best from every region. We should take the best training from Region 6, the best training from Region 14, perfect that, and then just distribute it to every region so that we can oversee the same program. Right now, we've got, oh my God, we've got inspection teams that are taking advantage of some regions or going into offices where there's no representation at all. We're losing routes all around the country. And I did say routes and not routes because some people will come back at me from New England for saying routes. But yeah, we need one message, but we need everybody on that same message. I think that's what I mean to say.
Okay. All right. Well, also, what training needs to be in person versus what training could be present in a virtual format?
So I think a lot of the book-wise education, like the grievance writing, can be done online and virtually. But I think the actual interactions in the grievance process, like the formal A arguments with the supervisor or the actual arbitration advocate work, that needs to be done with a person on the other side of the table. There's nothing quite like having somebody to tell off. I guess you can't tell off a computer screen like you can tell off somebody acting like a supervisor. And that's what you have to learn to stand up for yourself and to actually give it back to that person on the other side of the table. So I think the actual interactive grievance procedure and arbitration procedure has to be done in person.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we've been given training to somebody. They can get as much training as they want, but at the very first informal aid meeting that they go to, they kind of get nervous and they're like, "Well, so what do I do?"
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those things where you really do gotta be in person and get used to it.
Yeah, if I can tell you a little short aside, we had a route inspection in our Portsmouth office last week, and our district manager was there. And I don't care if it's the district manager or supervisor, I don't care who it is, but I was asked to come in because they wanted to show me some data and they wanted to, of course, try to make a deal halfway through the week. And the district manager was there talking about fixed office time, trying to reduce it. And I think you might have heard me talk about how they're trying to establish a 20-minute fixed office time. And she said, well, what do you think about that? And I said, I think you're trying to blow smoke up my ass. And everyone in the room was like, oh, you can't say that to our district manager. I'm like, I don't care who it is. And that's what you have to get at as a steward. You have to realize that you're on an equal footing and you have to be able to interact to do that. You can't do that on paper.
We're on 613.
613, baby. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All
Protected.
right. I have attended dozens of NALC trainings, all sorts of different trainings at national conventions, Michigan conventions, Kim's Region 6 trainings, both taught locally and at the annual October Kim training. And of course, local trainings at my union hall. The national convention trainings are second to none, but the Kim region trainings are close second. What are your plans for improving the accessibility to training on a national level? And what makes you qualified to hold such an important position?
Oh, what makes me qualified? Well, what makes anybody qualified, right? I mean, I think it's good that every single person that serves in our union is or was a letter carrier at one time. And I think that, I've been on the job for 40 years. 40, that's 40. So I have seen a lot of shit. And I think sometimes having your wheels on the ground and seeing what's going on around the country, around the offices, the grievance procedure, you haven't seen everything that can happen, but you've seen a lot of stuff. And I think that just, yeah, I mean, I could say that I've won 74% of my arbitration cases, but does that make me a great educator? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I guess people are just going to have to judge. Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of experience on the arbitration plate, I've been through Leadership Academy, Formally Beyond, all that stuff. I mean, I don't know if the resume makes you the right person or if the right person fills the resume. But what was the first part of that question? I'm sorry, I answered the second part first.
Well,
The
the first
training.
part was what are your plans for improving the accessibility of training on a national level?
Okay, so right now, like I told you, there's a dysfunction between national and regional levels. We don't have one message. We need that one message. And one of the things, I'm happy you brought this up. We've got some regions, and I bet you all of a sudden there's going to be some activity, but their Facebook pages have been dormant for like 4 or 5 years. How can you communicate with your regions if they're not communicating with their members? There's got to be a way to communicate. There's got to be open doors and open phone lines. Right now, some people, and this has happened in my branch, you call your regional office and they're like, only the branch president can call us. That's bullshit, brother. That's bullshit. Their salary is paid by every single member. If I want to call my regional office, if I want to call my national office, There's nothing that should stop that from happening. You know,
Yeah.
the money that I pay them is just as green as everybody else's money.
And there's
So
nothing more annoying than that, what do they call that? Line of command or something like
yeah, the
that.
gatekeeper mentality. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Sorry
yeah.
to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. I was done my rant.
Okay. All right. All right. That was from Steve Rubino. Let's see. Next question. What do you think about this Renfro retaliation, like what they did to Orlando and Debbie and now to Strickland?
Oh boy. So I have got a different opinion than a lot of people. I don't go for the retaliation at all. I don't care if a new slate comes into office. I don't care if it's somebody that's running against your slate or I think the most qualified person should be where the most qualified person's needed. And if it's somebody that I don't agree with, if I was the national president and somebody from the opposite slate was like an RAA or a business agent, I would bring them in and say, "Listen, can you work with me? Can we work together for the betterment of the NALC?" And if they said yes, that's fine. If they're the most qualified person, that's great. You know, time will tell if they can do the job, but if that should be the qualifying factor. Are you doing a good job for the membership? I don't care what political side you're on, and you know that's the first actual sign that I saw of a weakness in Brian Renfro was when he fired those two RAAs the day he took office, I think. And I just said to myself, of course I don't know the whole background of what their qualifications were, but it just looked like a vendetta, and that's just a bad way to do business, in my opinion.
Absolutely agree. All right. I understand the union stewards need the education, but is there any possible way of some type of monthly periodical that would push or could encourage just every city letter carrier to learn the contract?
So that is a great idea. We used to have a lot of those. We used to have the arbitration advocate newsletter for advocacy. I think one of them just came back. It wasn't the NALC Advocate. It was another publication, but there's nothing wrong with having one for the rank and file carriers. I think it's a great idea. If we're going to spend money, let's spend it on the members.
All right. The CLC is supposedly the slate for integrity. What do you make of the alleged election debacle in San Diego, and how will the CLC handle elections and possibility of election fraud, even if they happen among CLC supporters?
Okay, I am going to start this out by saying I don't know a lot about the issue that happened in San Diego. I've done some reading on it and I've heard a little bit. From what I understand, there were some questions about how an election was run, security of the ballots, maybe. I believe in the democratic process. You know, if somebody says they want somebody investigated and they come up and they're investigated fairly and they're found innocent of any wrongdoing, that's great. Um, on the other hand, I don't think that anybody should be above investigation. I mean, we saw that with our national president, you know, where it took a movement of the earth to actually get an investigation going. So I don't think anybody should be offended by being investigated. And if our democracy works fine, you're going to be proven innocent if you're innocent. So I don't have a problem with the process running its course, I guess. But as far as the actual election integrity, I believe in election integrity. I don't know of any malfeasance of ballots or anything like that that's ever happened nationally. I know there's been a lot of I think the clean sweep slate had some election petitions that they had brought forward, but I don't know a lot about those either. But I would hope, and I would do everything I could to make sure that elections are fairly held.
All right. Hey, just random question. What's your favorite postal podcast? Normally, this question gets asked, but nobody asks this one. I'm just
Oh,
going to throw it in there.
my favorite postal podcast. Well, it's not the one put out by National, the NALC National. I'll tell you that. Um, I got to go with Ada Arbitration, only because he's been around. I think he was one of the first to do it, and he's got a pretty good program, and he's not afraid to give people what they need to hear. So I'm a fan of Corey's podcast. I like mine
Well,
too, though.
yeah, he's got the best one. I don't think anyone can top Corey ever. Um, all of them are pretty good though. But
Yeah, I like yours too, John.
oh, you do? You
I
do?
do. I do.
All right.
Don't ask me to. All right. Aren't you gonna do the applause? Can't you do the applause button? Don't you have an applause button?
Oh yeah, I do got one of those. Let me see.
All right.
Um, so I'm just joking. Honestly, Corey and you both do very well. The Lions
As
Den.
do you, my friend. I think everybody who strives to help the membership, even if it's a 5 minute podcast, I mean, every little bit helps.
I think I'm like number five.
Oh,
Either
hey,
way, it's pretty fun though. I love
but
doing it.
yeah, it's great. It's a great time.
Uh, with all the different handbooks and manuals the post office has, along with our contract, what would be the most beneficial for letter carriers to be educated on and why?
Oh, okay. The one that's in your drawer should be in your drawer as a carrier, the M41. That's the letter carrier's responsibilities. There is so much in there, and I'm telling you right now, they put that in our drawer for a reason. Sit down and read the damn thing. Because if you're brought in on discipline, they're going to ask if you know this section or that section. Take your time and read it. If you get downtime, pull it out of your drawer. If you don't see it in there, ask them for a copy. But the M41 is definitely where I would go. Now, if you're online, I would probably start looking at the JCAM. Just type in NALC JCAM and start going through how we interpret the contract. That's great for rank and file carriers too. It's great reading.
Yeah, all good choices, man. All right. What is your opinion of training courses such as Formula and Beyond?
Formula and Beyond, I think, is a great course. I'm not a big fan of what they've done. They've replaced it with the informal A training. In my opinion, you've got a lot of new stewards who want to learn about the informal A process, but it's like anything else. If you're just starting out with something, you might not stick with it. You might be interested in just seeing what it's like. We've got a lot of stewards who've tried it, and first couple of weeks they said it's not for me. I'm not a confrontational person, you know. I don't want to maybe defend a person I don't like or something. So to pay our national dues to send people to Washington for a program that they might not stick with in a couple of weeks, I think was a mistake. I think that they should have kept the Formula A program in Washington, maybe regional, and then Washington for maybe like have a lottery, like maybe have 10 people do it regionally and send one to national so they can come back with some stuff. But the informal A process, I think that should be strictly regional and grow it. Grow it regionally. Get as many people as you can involved. But I think it should stay in-house myself.
Okay. What's your opinion of Leadership Academy?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'll tell you that the greatest thing from Leadership Academy you're going to learn is you're going to learn to develop your voice and your persona in dealing with management. That's one of the things I loved best was the speeches there when you had to give speeches and stuff, and you just had to embarrass yourself and just go out there and get out of your shell. I saw people there. We were up at like 2 in the morning talking to people who had a hard time expressing themselves, and by the end of the course, they're out there, you know, and walking around the room talking, and it's great to see people grow. But I love Leadership Academy. I thought it was fantastic.
Um, what about the application process? I got a bone to pick with that. I feel like it's too dependent on who the NBA likes and
Yeah,
things like that.
the screening process I'm not a big fan of. You know, again, how many qualifications do you need to do something? There's some great people who might not have done a lot, but we want them in leadership roles. And there's other people who've worked really hard and they're being held back. So I don't know what the answer is, except that maybe some oversight and make sure that people are chosen on their merits and on their qualifications and not who they know.
Yeah, it's that's a lot to ask for sometimes. It seems
Yeah,
like.
well, yeah, it is. But that's why I said, you know, the position of director of education might be a field position where I'm going to knock on a door and say, why didn't this person go through when this other person did? Show me why.
Now, if you had to choose one past NALC president to lead us, from William Wood to Fred Rolando, who would they be and why?
Ah, Bill Young, because he was a loudmouth, man. He would say it just like he thought. And if he had to go back and correct himself, he would, but he would just say what's on his mind.
Okay. What do you plan to do if the CLC is unable to reinstate the director of education as a national level position?
What am I going to do? I want to retire to Florida. No. Well, I mean, I've always served the membership. I'm an arbitration advocate. I'm a president of my branch. Those are things I love doing. You know, I'll serve the membership however I can. You know, if the position is not reinstated and somebody asks me to, you know, clean the bathroom at the regional office, I'm in. I'll do it.
All right. Do you have any plans to update the NALC grievance starters? And if so, which grievance starters do you find lacking and why?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm not a fan of the grievance starters as a whole. There is a disclaimer at the beginning where they say these are just very skeletal um, frameworks and you're supposed to add to them, but I don't think they give you enough. Any grievance you're going to have is going to have all these exhibits, right? And where are they? They cite the JCAM, this section of the JCAM, the M41. Why don't they just put an attachment so that the steward can just download all of these references and look at them? So I think that they should expand it. One of the ones I really have a problem with is the grievance starter for CA16. And I don't know if all your listeners know what that is, but a CA16 is a blank check when you're injured on the job to be treated for 60 days. You give it to your doctor. The Postal Service has 4 hours to give it to you. Unless it's an emergency, then it has to be within 48. But it's your blank ticket to treatment. The grievance starter that the NALC has, you think about this, right? If you don't get a CA16, what don't you get? You don't get your medical bills paid, right? If
Yep.
you look at the grievance starter that National has, not one of the remedies says pay the damn medical bills. You make you whole for lost wages. You didn't lose any wages because you went to the doctors. I mean, it's stupid. And I brought
Yep.
this up to them in 2022 or 23, and they said, "Oh, wow, good catch. We'll change that." And if you go on there right now, it's the same way it's always been. So I don't know if it's bureaucracy, laziness, or just unwillingness to accept that you're wrong, but we need to look at those grievance starters, brother. We sure do.
How do you plan to educate the membership on the importance of cease and desist language and escalated remedies?
So, as I told you earlier, I personally have a stock cease and desist argument. It's about 6 pages long. I try to address everything the Postal Service is going to say. Oh, we can't do cease and desist because we can't promise you that we're going to stop. Well, you're going to have to try. We can't do that because it's a punitive remedy. We can't do it because it's only listed at 2 places in the JCAM. We need a stock response to the attack on cease and desist because that's our most basic enforcement tool. I mean, management has progressive discipline. They can go after a carrier and the punishment gets worse and worse and worse until we comply with the contract, right? What do we have? We have cease and desist. And management gets angry when they have to increase their remedies under cease and desist, but that's exactly what's held against us. So I think my answer is we need a firm cease and desist argument until our national team actually goes after it on a larger basis, a larger scale, and files a national grievance.
I agree. What region has the best education? Why do you think that? And how would you implement what they do so well across the nation?
Ooh, so I love the Stewart College in Region 1 and Region 6, the Kim region. I love Region 9's education on route inspections. They have inspection teams that go from office to office. Like I said, some people get caught off guard without knowing the process. They send teams in. My region we have a great education from Branch 34. Richie Galvin does a great inspection training from Branch 34, and he'll go to other states and do it. I don't think I have a favorite region. I think there's a lot of regions that do a lot of things well. And I think that we just need to capitalize on that and grow from each other. I think it's a shame if, and I'm speaking out of turn because I don't know if it's a fact, but some regions who do something well, I'm not sure if they're willing to share. I think some regions are proud that they're doing something the best. And I think we should be proud if we're doing something the best for all of our members, not just 1/15 of our members. So my dream is that all of our regions get together and make us the strongest union we can be. And I think that we need a strong leadership model to do that. And I think James Henry's going to pull that off.
All right. What will be done when the local union and NBA weakens the contract by using discretion to issue weak settlements that avoid compliance?
So you mean by abide by and all the watered down remedies? I think that's what the question is.
Yeah, I technically personally know this person. I think they're referring to if they're talking about a local union, they're talking about sweetheart deals or potentially net taking things as seriously. Maybe if you appeal it to Formula A and they decide to settle for something much less than they should, or
Oh
potentially even
yeah.
rescind it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these like Formula A Step Bs, I think they're getting the message that we should be settling grievances. And I think this is the whole blackmail thing that we're talking about because there's so many backlog grievances that we just want to not add another one to the pile. But we can't do that. We have to fight like every grievance is our last grievance. I mean, you think about like a JSOV. A JSOV is a big hotspot for me because I hate the way that our members are being taken advantage of. But if we settle for a weak remedy on the first affront to our carriers, how do we build on it? How do we get a supervisor to stop going after our carriers if we don't build that first brick in the wall? So I firmly believe that when you have a supervisor in the crosshairs, you go after them. I mean, you file that grievance, you get that remedy. You don't let them off. This isn't a I'm not going to buy you a cup of coffee and a donut because I screwed over a carrier. You're going to give us a good remedy.
All right. That's a good one. Do you have a plan for the average rank and file letter carrier who just wants to learn how to do the job correctly? And do you plan on bringing back the advanced formal A and beyond training?
So the formal and beyond training, yes. Like I said, I think that should go to regions, and I think that they should still do it at national, but I think that it should be a regional process because, like you said, there's so many people who are trying to get into these programs, and we shouldn't have a 4 or 5 year waiting list to get into Leadership Academy, to get into formal and beyond. Do it regionally, do it nationally as well. And the more you can grow it nationally, that's great. But if you can't get all the people at a national level, bring them into the regions. Have each state, if you have to, do a formal A training. And what was the first part of that question? I keep jumping to the second part because I get so excited about this shit.
Oh, that's okay. Do you have a plan for the average rank and file letter carrier who just wants to learn how to do the job correctly?
Yeah, I think the social media avenue is the best way to do that. I think that we need to do a lot of communicating. Like I said, all of our regions should have social media connections. We should have how Brian Renfro was doing those little social media blurbs when he was just starting his reelection campaign. Now it's underway, so we don't do that anymore. But he was doing these little messages to the membership. Our region should be doing that. And it should be like a podcast like you and I, where members can call in and say, hey, this is going on in my office. And then you get a couple of other people say, hey, it's going on in my office too. And you start learning about that, like the CA16s. There's a substitute form now that's being used for CA16. You learn about that, and all of a sudden the carrier's like, I'm supposed to get this other form. There's education out there for the rank and file. So I think that the way to do that is podcasts like you and I are doing, but on an NALC level. They should be doing that for the membership. It wouldn't hurt these people to
Yeah.
work a little bit after hours. They're getting paid well.
Now, to be honest, I don't normally do this, but I think honestly, I think I support you.
Oh, brother, look at you
Yeah,
go. Look at
I
you go.
support.
If you guys aren't watching the YouTube version of this, my brother here is wearing a CLC hat. So I don't know if I just turned you over or if you've been a supporter, but I love you, man.
Well, Ken McNeil gave me this, and he's a great guy. But hey, I do support you. I think you guys are doing a great job. I honestly, I think you'd make a fine director of education. But this wouldn't be an investigative interview without asking one final question,
Here we go.
so that everyone else can understand whether or not they support you. Now, is there anything else you would like to add?
Is there anything else I'd like to add? So yeah, I think we need to be a more militant union on the workroom floor. I think right now our members are being taken advantage of, not only through the grievance procedure where we're not getting cease and desist remedies where we should, but just on harassment. Josh, you go on the workroom floor right now, right? And someone puts in a 39.96 for help. And the supervisor says, well, I think you can do it in 8 hours. That's the end of the conversation. That should be the end of the conversation, but it's not. They come after our carriers. Hey, last week you did this route in 7 hours. Somebody else is doing it faster than you. If you want to get that day off next week, you want to change the schedule, you're going to do this in 8 hours today. You want to know lunch? Bust your ass for me. Skip your breaks. We've got to stop that. We need to have a presence on the
Yep.
workroom floor. If we do this enough, if we do this the right way, if we send teams into these offices where the harassment's taking place, they're going to be thinking to themselves, shit, that office next door just had a team come in. Do I want to do that or do I want to treat my carriers better? That's where we want to get to. We want to get to where these supervisors, these managers are afraid of the NALC because we should be something to be afraid of. I mean, we're a strong union and we need to start flexing some muscle out there on the workroom floor and defending our carriers. So I guess that's how I'd like to end my spiel is like we need to fight.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
sat too long in a rocking chair watching supervisors taking advantage of us. That's over. That shit's done.
Well, you know what? I think you got a good point there. The problem is, if any region is like Region 6, or at least my district, they're leading by fear. And so if they're afraid of the consequences of their boom or district manager, for example, if you get a grievance settlement, they'll issue a letter of demand.
Right.
They'll write them up for things that they caused themselves. Like, for example, they tell you, hey, they tell the supervisors or the postmasters, hey, you better get everyone back off the street by 6 p.m. or else, because that's all you got is till 6. That's the volume. And then if they don't, well, then they get in trouble. And if they do, they had to do it by doing something inappropriate. And if they find out, oh, well, you didn't get the mail delivered, well, now they're in trouble too. So they cause the issue, and then no matter what, the postmaster loses, and that frustration goes down to the city letter carrier. And I think if they're afraid of their bosses, they're not going to be afraid of us based on the way we operate. We just
Right.
we're like a teddy bear to them because all we do is try and file a grievance. It just goes up and it takes a year. So I agree. I think
I,
we need to have a little bit bite.
I'd like to get to the point where district management will call us and say, where are we in trouble right now? So that they can fix it before we have to go. That's where we need to get to. We need to get to the point where they're self-managing and our carriers are happy to come to work.
Yep, I agree. But it was good having you on, Paul. And
Yeah,
as
appreciate it, brother.
always, hopefully we learned something valuable about you today. And you know, uh, let's see, next week, just to let everyone know, I'm going to have Orlando on. Um, what region is that again?
Oh,
Richie Ray's region.
oh, 15? I think 15, right?
Yeah. Either way, I'm going to repeat this on Monday. It doesn't matter. But for all those folks that are interested, I'm going to have Orlando on next week. So if anybody has any questions, start thinking about them. And it was good having you on.
I appreciate it, brother. We'll see you soon, anytime.
Yeah, you too.